All right, live. Welcome to Leadership Pathfinder's first live session. And I guess the scariest part of this is the first time that I'm doing this, first time doing a live where I'm just talking to a camera and potentially no one, potentially lots of people. You never know until you get on, and that's what's exciting about this. I'm Steve Karagulis. I'm a leadership coach and consultant. I've been doing leadership for a little over 20 years. I was lucky enough to be part of the Army Cadets when I was young and got into the whole leadership thing, and it really took me. I loved the ability to get the best out of other people, right? And leadership really is that. It's about serving others and raising them to their potential, which in turn then raises you to your potential. So leadership coach and consultant, I like to call myself the chief pathfinder. And pathfinder, of course, because as leaders, we are going to make new paths. We are going to create new targets, and we are going to achieve new things not done before. So I do training and development for organizations, both live and virtually, in classroom settings, in group settings virtually, but also one-on-one coaching with managers, leaders, executives to help them do better, to help them get the best out of their people. In addition to that, I've worked with companies doing performance planning. So that's about setting their vision and their goals and then creating objectives that can cascade throughout the organization, creating a crucial path so that all the people in the company can know what's important for them. What do they need to do to succeed? So that's part of what I do. And the other thing is I have been working in human resources also for about 20 years. I've been an HR director in different industries, and it's still, that was where my career started in human resources, because again, I wanted to do something that impacted the people of the organization, which to me is the differentiator when it comes to success in a company. So I still offer recruiting and compensation consulting, retention, and performance management consulting. So that's a little bit about me. The point of these, I plan on doing these every week, about a half hour. We're going to talk about leadership, one topic, to give a little bit about, to help you in your roles. And we're all leaders. So as we're going to see over the coming weeks, leadership isn't just for the person who's in a position of leadership. In fact, very often in my career, I found those leaders were in their positions because that was just how their career took them. But the leaders can be parents, they can be salespeople, they can be friends, right? We all have roles as leaders. And so what we're going to be covering over many weeks as this goes on is going to be applicable to everyone. And so today we're looking at the characteristics of a strong leader. So what is it that separates the good leaders from the rest? So that's what we're going to look at. Thank you. Welcome to everybody who's joined. And what we're going to do is we're going to start by, I want you to think about a leader that you respect, that you follow. Think about that leader, and this can be from the past. This could be you want to go back and say Alexander the Great is one that I've read about, or you can think about Winston Churchill. You can think about a lot of people respect Elon Musk. Whoever it is, I want you to throughout this session envision that leader, and I want you to think about what that strong leader has of the characteristics we're going to discuss. And then I want you also to think about yourself when we look at those characteristics. So let's get into this, because these are half hour. It's not to drag on. So the first characteristic of a strong leader is that they are confident. They're confident. They're marked by their belief in themselves, and they're secure in the choices that they take. So that being said, there is a fine balance of confidence. You don't want to be overconfident, right? Overconfident thinking you can do no wrong, everything you do is great, because that can lead to a number of things, a number of problems within your team. For example, it's good to be surrounded by people who can give their opinion and help you make the right decisions. But if you're always right and you've always got the solutions, well, suddenly your advisors and the people who can help you, either they're not because you're not taking their opinion, and eventually that leads to them just being quiet because, hey, nobody wants to continuously give an opinion that's not being considered. So for that, leaders balance the lack of confidence, because if you don't have confidence, you can't take the risks, you can't take the chances, and you can't push forward. But they're also not overconfident where they feel that they can't do any wrong. That leads to mistakes and that leads to failures. There's another thing that leaders also have to be very wary of, and that's thinking they're superior to others. You're in a leadership position, but like I said when we started out, leadership is a servant role. We serve others. We do for others. Our job as leaders is to raise others up. And so you don't want to see yourself as superior to them, because then serving someone who's inferior to me becomes something that you don't do. And so you have to be careful about overconfidence, and that overconfidence at its worst point being a feeling of superiority. And this is a common mistake made by high performers. And I'm going to interchange high performer with leader only because to be a great leader, you have to be a high performer. You can't be a slacker. If you want to achieve, you have to lead by example. So you need to be that high performer. And often high performers will feel that they're superior. And that takes them down that notch. That takes them down. It actually is a negative attribute that lowers themselves in terms of what they can achieve with their people. So I'm seeing a comment, a leader is also a learner. Absolutely. And that's probably going to be one of the things we're going to get to. So confidence, you've got confidence, and in touching with being a learner, you're going to see a lot of these characteristics do interchange. If you are confident in yourself, you are also confident about what you don't know, right? You know what you know and you know what you don't know, and that'll bring you to being a learner. But we are going to look at that one because it is absolutely one of the main characteristics of a strong leader. The next one is leaders are in control of their emotions. And this isn't they're stoic and always stone cold and they have no emotions. That's not it. They just don't lose control. So to specify losing control versus being vulnerable. Being vulnerable is acceptable in the sense that you can make mistakes. You can admit you're wrong. You can admit that you've had struggles or it's been taxing on you. That's all just part of being human. But losing control of your emotions, I've seen leaders who just blow up, explode, scream, or worse, just kind of get unhinged and have to leave the situation, and that just it does a really bad job on your reputation. The people following you then start to wonder whether or not you can handle it. So stress resistance is something that is important for leaders to be able to have. Leaders have to be the calm in difficult situations. They're the rock in troubled waters, if you will. So think of yourself, if you're in a difficult situation and you're the leader of a group, let's say, going back to my Army cadet days, if you're in the middle of the forest and you're lost and the leader starts freaking out, can you imagine all the people that are looking to the leader for guidance? They're going to freak out even more. So as the leader, even if you're not completely sure of what's going on, going back to that first characteristic, you have the confidence that, hey, we're still going to find our way out of this. We're going to succeed at this. How? I don't know yet, but we're going to figure this out. And that's where that confidence helps the leader stay in control of their emotions. Even in the most difficult of times, they're going to find that positive, and they're going to have the confidence that positive is possible and achievable as long as they work at it. So confidence and in control of emotions. You can see where this one's going to link, especially with that last example. The third characteristic of a strong leader is they are determined. They keep going until something stops them. And then they just keep going anyways. Leaders are persistent and tenacious, and they realize that nothing ever happens in one day, or nothing great ever happens in one day. So even after a setback or an obstacle gets in their way, they're still determined to find a way. They're either going to find a way over that rock in the road, around that boulder, or they're going to go right through it. But regardless, they're determined. And you can see again how being confident helps this one, right? It supports this. They're determined because they have the confidence that as long as they keep at it, as long as that ambition, that drive, that tenacity keeps going, they will succeed. And so, number 3, leaders are determined. Number 4, they're always improving. So Mary mentioned before, a leader is a learner. Well, leaders are constantly finding ways to improve. They're continuously improving. They know that the challenges that they just solved are not going to be the same as the challenges that are up ahead, right? As they grow, as they seek another level, there are new issues, new obstacles, new problems. And so the person you were when you got into this is not going to be enough to help you get through this. So the leader keeps learning. And this can be seen as, when I'm talking about obstacles, it isn't just, things that are uncontrollable. This is also when you're setting goals as leaders. If you set a goal as a leader and you know exactly how you're going to achieve it and everything that you need to do and all that you need and that's it, well, the chances are you haven't set your goal high enough. If you set your goal high enough, there should be a few things that leave you, I'm scratching my chin, but scratching your head because you don't know exactly how you're going to achieve it. But your confidence, your determination allow you to put that into your goal. And hey, we're going to have to stretch. We're going to have to work really hard. And we're going to need to get better. We're going to need to learn some things or grow in order to tackle the challenges that are up ahead in order for us to achieve our objectives. The other thing is we work with people. Leaders, you're not a leader if you don't have people. So we work with people. And like I said, I've been in leadership well over 20 years. Society changes, people change, trends happen, right? So there are a lot of things that if you're not adapting, the leader who was in a leadership position in the 1980s would have a really tough time today because that style of leadership, which was very top down, very authoritative, I don't think it really worked well then, just people accepted it. People don't accept that anymore. So if you're using the same style, if you're approaching people the same way, you're not going to have the results that you're seeking. So as leaders, we need to continuously improve. We need to be sharpening that axe constantly so that we can do our job and help our people achieve the objectives. Number 5, this one should not, I think it shouldn't be there, but it's there because it is what differentiates the strong leaders from the rest, and that is being honest and ethical. And part of my motivation in starting Pathfinder and focusing on leadership was the amount of stories that you hear about people in leadership positions, whether it be in companies or in politics, and the lack of ethics, the dishonesty that goes on. We have to make a difference. We have to try and change it. And that was one of my goals with Pathfinder, was to say, I want to help create a better brand of leader. And so honesty and having ethics or working with ethics has to be a cornerstone. It has to be the foundation of every leader. It helps build confidence in the people that follow you. It helps build their trust as well when you're honest. People want to follow a leader that they can trust. But if you're dishonest, and dishonesty we're going to get into, because it's not just lying right out, right? There are different ways that we can be dishonest. And so if the people can't trust you, they're not going to want to follow you. And they'll probably be the same back. And the reality is deceit always catches up with an individual. So if you're in a leadership position, deceit's going to catch up to you if you're lying. So who lies to their people? Who lies to their employees? Well, if you've ever seen someone breaking a rule, not following a standard, arriving late, and you don't say something about it, well, is it lying? Not exactly. But that lack of follow-up, that lack of being honest, it leads to problems down the road. The number one weakness that is displayed by leaders is the inability to handle the negative. And what I mean by that is it's when a leader is really focused on being nice, and so everything they do is nice, and they avoid conflict. And whenever somebody brings up something like, "Hey, I've got a problem with this," it's really seen as, "Oh, why is that person being so negative?" That leads to a very toxic environment. And since the leader is going to need to continue being dishonest to avoid the issues. And as the leader continues to avoid, they eventually will drop a bomb on the follower that they're unhappy with. So what I mean by that is, you see somebody doing something wrong. Let's take a very basic example. Somebody showing up late and nothing is said. And it could really just be an honest conversation of, "Hey, what's going on? You were supposed to be here at this time and you weren't here. Let's have a talk about that." But it's avoided, and it continues. And it's avoided, and it continues, and it's avoided. And then eventually the leader here hasn't said anything. So the follower, the employee, doesn't necessarily know anything is wrong about it, drops the bomb. You come in late one more time, you're fired. And so that's also a level of dishonesty. And yeah, it does take a little bit of courage, and you keep stealing my thunder, but I do appreciate it. We are going to get into that. Absolutely, you need to have courage, and that courage is part of being honest and ethical. It's that vulnerability and that honesty. Often I've seen leaders who are dishonest about things that they've done wrong. Well, how do you expect your people to then be honest when they do something wrong? And so you have to set the example. You need to be honest and ethical. Number 6, leaders think before speaking. So in going with honest and ethical, if you have someone who's got a performance issue, for example, don't just go up to them and say, "You're late. Why are you late?" Think about what you're doing. What's going to be the impact? What's the goal that you're trying to have? And so in doing that, plan a little bit about that conversation. Plan your approach. A leader is responsible for their words. And so if you're just spewing whatever comes to your mind and there's a quick, a short path between and you just spew it out, well, there are going to be consequences to that. And so a leader is going to alter what they're saying in order to tailor the conversation. Now, this, of course, shouldn't be confused with, again, dishonesty, nor should it be confused with being overly nice and handling everything with white gloves. It's just about having some tact and having consideration and empathy for our people in our approaches. Being original, leaders are visionaries and they're always looking to do things differently. And so there's a creativeness that has to come out. There's an imaginativeness that has to come out, right? You need an imagination and you need to create. And if you're a leader in a position, typically you don't want to say, "Well, whatever the person was in this position before me, I want to do exactly what they did and just keep it steady." Well, rather than that, as the leader, you want to say, "Well, whatever the person did before me, I want to better it. I want to continue down that path." Remember about continuously improving, right? So as a leader, I want to continuously improve, and I'm going to be original. I'm going to set new goals. I'm going to set new targets. And I'm going to help my team get to a new mountaintop in order to achieve what I want to achieve. Now, with all that confidence, that leaders are also publicly modest. And the saying that I remember is, leaders take more than their fair share of the blame and less than their fair share of the credit. Because again, we're there to serve our people. So leadership isn't about, "Hey, look at me, look what I achieved in my business, in my store, in my whatever it is." The leader, you're there to help the others achieve it. And so you don't take that, you allow others to shine. And as a result, you shine as well. But the leader isn't, they're not recognition hungry. The leader is going to allow their people to get that recognition and be modest. When somebody says, "You're doing a great job," and a good leader is going to say, I'm just part of the team. It's really the team who did it. I'm just one person. And that is the truth. And the good leaders recognize that and do it. Leaders are risk takers. I said it before, right? If you set a goal and you know exactly how to get there, well, that's not really much of a risk. But if you set goals and you say, "I'm going to have to stretch, I'm going to have to grow, I'm going to have to I'm going to have to, think of the obstacles and help my team get around it. And I don't know if I have the right members or enough members on my team, but we're going to get there. That is all the definition of risk. So again, Mary wrote leadership courage, being that of course, these are calculated risks. Being that calculated risk taker requires courage. But in that confidence that they have and the determination and the will to be original and seek new targets, it is absolutely necessary that you take risks in order to get the others. Of course, leaders are detail-oriented. It's always the small things that make up the big difference. So leaders pay attention to the detail. That would save time. If you went down the wrong path because you didn't see that. Now, at the same time, though, the leader also has that 10,000-foot view, right? So they're up top and they have to be able to see what's going on in the team, but they also have to be able to recognize the details. Now, that shouldn't be confused with recognizing the details and going and telling everybody what to do, but recognizing the details in order to guide the team in order to make the right choices for success. This is a big one. And this is one that I've actually started seeing. I've seen it on LinkedIn, people mentioning it, and it's very exciting. And that is, leaders have to be willing to lead. This is difficult in corporate settings where how do you continue to grow? How do you continue to move up in a company? How do you continue to, and not just your career, but your salary or your earnings? Well, that's often the only way is that people take leadership positions. They move into management roles. And often in companies, what happens is, and I've seen this, where a great salesperson, for example, becomes a sales manager, horrible sales manager, because that's not where their skills are. But they did it because, I can make more money, it's less of a grind, so do it. And then what happens is you have leaders who are not modest, not honest, not hardworking, and so on and so on. They're there for the wrong reasons. And since you'll see in the next one, you have to be there for your people. If you're there just because you're trying to get more money or you're trying to, grow your career outside of, hey, I'm a professional, but I'd like to be a leader, you don't make the sacrifices that a leader has to do. And in the end, the people below you, your followers, they end up suffering because the manager isn't really a leader for the right reasons. So the strong leaders, they've chosen to lead. They've chosen to make the sacrifices. Yes, be authentic and be confident. You came in a little late, but we talked about that one, and you're absolutely right. You want to be authentic and you need to be confident. And you need to fight for your people. As leaders, we're serving our people and we need them to have our backs. So leadership is a two-way street: trust, respect, and we need to fight for our people. And this is a tough one, especially in corporate settings. I've seen it. I've been the victim of it, where my leader, like a sheet of paper, the minute somebody says, hey, that's what's going on there, well, I don't know, and they just sell you out. And then of course you are not going to have your boss's back or your leader's back if that's how they do you. So a strong leader will defend their people. Of course, when their people are wrong, they're still going to try and handle it themselves. They're not going to just let someone walk in and deal with it. Now, of course, that can be difficult in corporate settings, but leaders fight for their people. They're loyal to them. They spread the credit. They share the spirit and they share the lead. And I'll give you an example. When somebody on my team does something wrong, I'm not going to allow somebody else come and bombard them. I'm going to defend them or protect them from that. And then I'm going to have that discussion because, again, I'm able to choose the words that I'm going to use in order to, get the impact that I want, achieve the goal, which is solve the problem, maintain the relationship. Leaders admit mistakes. We talked about vulnerability. So when we're talking about being authentic or being having courage, admitting mistakes or being vulnerable is super important. Nobody wants to follow the know-it-all. Nobody wants to follow the person who never gets anything wrong. But I'll give you another example of why admitting mistakes is important. If you want your team members to try, to push, well, they're going to make mistakes. But if you don't admit mistakes, if you don't accept mistakes, how are you really going to get your people to push and try? And so by setting the example of, hey, I tried this, I made a mistake, your people are seeing that trying something and risking is okay. It's calculated. Mistakes are okay too. And then we admit them, we learn from them, and we try not to repeat them. And so the strong leader admits their mistakes. It's what's gonna separate a high performer from a low performer. The high performer accepts the mistakes, learns from them, grows from them. The low performer denies the mistakes, kind of looks past them like this, and makes them again and again. They're straightforward. Leaders don't, like I said before, not everything's sugar-coated and not everything is handled with white gloves. So leaders have to be clear in their communication. Like I said, wisdom and tact is always important, but clear communication. They're not going to beat around the bush. They're not going to wait until they explode emotionally. They see something, they're going to say it, but they're going to say it with tact, again, with the goal to solve the issue, maintain the relationship. They're going to act with empathy. Leaders are positive. Leaders are positive. Number 15, positivity. Because of their confidence, because of their duty to serve, they're always going to act as the light for their people, especially during difficult times. Can you imagine being in a difficult situation? Like I said, you're lost in the forest and your leader's like, oh man, we're so going to die. Oh, the bears are going to eat us tonight. You're not going to want to follow this. But I'd be like, I'm out of here. I'm not sticking around. But if the leader's like, look, I know we're lost. Things could be better, but we're going to get our way out of this. We've always gotten our way out of these kinds of jams, right? And you'll hear that in movies, right? Where they're like, we've always gotten out of this. Well, that is the positivity the leader has. The leader has the confidence that things are going to get better, but they also have the duty to their people that they need to be that rock. They need to be the strength. So even when things get tough, they're going to be positive. They're going to find the silver lining to the dark gray storm clouds. Leaders are going to initiate. It's one of the hardest things, right? When I've worked in the QSR and the quick service retail, so I've worked with a lot of young people. And one of the things that a lot of young people haven't learned yet before they come to work is to take initiatives. So there's a piece of paper on the floor. They walk past it, and you're like, hey, why did you walk past that piece of paper? Well, I don't know. I didn't know I had to pick it up. Well, you don't have to pick it up. But does it belong there? It doesn't. Take initiative. So the high-performing leader, more than just a piece of paper, isn't waiting to be instructed and told what to do. And so at the beginning, and I told you about what I do performance planning, and we set goals for the organization and the vision in order for them to cascade. What we're trying to do is create the crucial path so the leaders in the organization know this is what I need to do. This is what's important. And so they don't need to be told specifically what to go and do. They know that as long as I'm on this path, I'm doing what's important in this company. So they take initiatives. They're not needed to be told exactly what to do. Leaders are trusting. This is one, and I've worked with a lot of leaders, and I've had people say, I don't trust anybody on my team. Well, that's really too bad. If you don't trust anybody on your team, they're not going to trust you back. But more importantly, if you don't trust them, well, you're going to get the way you treat them. That's the way leadership works. You're going to get out of your people the way you treat them. So if you treat them poorly or you treat them like they can't do anything, you're going to get close to that. But if you trust, you begin with a position of trust, they'll be able to show you their greatness. So leaders trust others. They trust until proven wrong. And I'm not saying blind trust, like, hey, just hired a person. Here are the keys to the safe. Here's all the cash. Nobody's checking on you. That's not what this means. But there is still that I hired you for this position. I'm trusting that what I've seen in you, what I've evaluated in you is good. And I trust that you will do what's right. There are levels to trust. But to start out, I'm going to trust that you can do this. And again, it's a two-way street. So if you're not showing trust to your employees or to your followers, well, you're not going to get trust back. I've said this. We've talked about fighting for your people. So it is obvious that leaders are people focused. People focused. We focus on people because without people, we're not leaders. And so we need to have the people on our team. And that's why throughout this, we're talking about vulnerability, right? Admitting your mistakes to your people. We're talking about fighting for your people. We're talking about trusting them. It's all about the people. And so the leader, the person who chooses to be in a leadership position, in order to be a high performer, they need to be focused on their people. It's the only way you're going to get the most out of them. So focus on your people. Number 19, there is a nowness that leaders have. Leaders don't procrastinate. They don't wait to be told to get started. They're ready to go. They're ready to go now because they want to get on with it. They want to get towards the goal, right? So they've set it. They've set their goals. They've taken the risks. They don't know how to get there. So the sooner they start on it, the faster they'll figure it out. And so leaders have that. There's always that sense of urgency, not frantic urgency, but an urgency of, we got to get this going. They make it happen. And then the last one, leaders are nice. Leaders are nice. They'll do unto others as they would have done unto them, right? So there's a certain level of niceness. I talked about tact, professionalism. To make yourself a better leader, be nice first, and you'll get that back from your people, right? If you're coarse and unpleasant, well, don't expect your people to be super nice. It'll probably be like a bullying relationship. But like some of the other rules, this can go too far. And I've worked in settings where niceness was over the top. Over the top. We only ever said nice things. We didn't question anything. We didn't look at anything that went wrong. No, because, hey, everything's good. Oh, no. The failures, let's not look at those. Let's just focus on, let's not talk about. Let's not challenge each other. And so when you're a leader who doesn't allow challenging, doesn't allow questioning, what ends up happening is a certain level of groupthink. So everybody's thinking the same thing. Everybody's just there to pat the leader on the back. Hey, good job, good. That's a great thought. And it develops into a toxic environment of, there's a lack of accountability. People then start getting more focused on ego and recognition for things that aren't necessarily achieved. And it's crazy how going over the top with niceness leads to some really bad things. So the leader is going to balance niceness with being straightforward as well, right? So you're nice to your people, you're pleasant, but that's doesn't limit you from being straightforward and honest with them. Because if you're being nice and you're not being honest, right? You're not being honest because you're not giving the facts. You're not saying, hey, what you did there, that wasn't right. Or, hey, we're not achieving what we thought we would achieve. We're not doing as good. But rather, hey, everything's great. No, no need to look here. Let's move past that and just keep thinking and talking about the nice things. Well, you're not going to get, and you're going to be dishonest, and you're not going to get what you're hoping for. And if you don't address the challenges, Mary's saying, if you don't address the challenges, failures, so that they can learn and improve, are you really being nice? Exactly. Who is least nice? And this will be the last point on this. Who's less nice? The person who's being straightforward and honest, tactful though, but straightforward and honest, or the person who is lying to you but smiling? Right? They're lying. They're not telling you the honest. They're not telling you that they really think you're doing a poor job, but they're smiling. They're saying everything's great. My opinion, obviously, is the person who's smiling in your face but ready to stab you in the back. I prefer the person who comes to me, the leader who's being honest and says, things aren't going the way we would like them to, right? Because at least it gives me a chance to improve. And so leaders, high-performing leaders are nice, but they balance that with, as we saw earlier, honesty and straightforwardness. And so what I want to leave you with is, now that we've looked over these characteristics, this video will be up. I'm going to post a few things in the next day or so that'll cover the characteristics. I want you to choose and look through and find the ones that you're strongest at. Like, say, hey, as a leader, these are the ones I do really well. Now that you've got that, pat yourself on the back. Find the 2 or 3 that you say, these are the ones I really need to work on. These are the ones that if I get better at these, I'll be a much better leader. Okay? it's important that we recognize what we're strong at, but more important that we recognize our weaknesses and we attack those and we improve it. That's how we continue to grow. And as leaders, you want to continuously grow. And so we're a little bit past the time. This is my first one. So, and I love talking about leadership. So it's going to be difficult to rein it into half an hour. So I thank everybody who's joined. I thank everybody who's been watching. Leadership Pathfinder, give a follow, give a share. We'll be doing this every week, touching on one important leadership topic. And I hope to see you all again next week. Thanks for joining. See you again soon. And I'm going to press end somewhere.